after 7, so I'd like to get started. And once again, welcome those that are here tonight. We actually have a few new faces tonight, so very good. Glad to have you. Just to kind of by way of introduction, I'm going to be the presenter tonight, and obviously our topic is emergency sanitation and hygiene. I am following a PowerPoint presentation of a guy that put this whole thing together in Arizona. It's on a website called iwillprepare.com, and he has amazing stuff on there. That being said, we're limited to his research and his knowledge and understanding. Certainly, and then beyond that, we get limited to mine, which is much more limited. But the thing is, there's a good chance there's going to be any one of you that has additional insights that tonight I will welcome comments and discussion on any given thing we're talking about. I'll keep an eye on the clock. I know how many slides there are to go through, so we'll just kind of work through it. But it is a good night for discussion on anything, and I do not present tonight with any pretense of expertise on this. But we all are learning here, so it's a good thing. I mentioned before that we're part of there's a small group here in Millville called the Community Preparedness Group, and we're doing this as a service to the community. I want you to know that the members of Community Preparedness Group are very committed to this, and we want to share and be there for the community in every way we can. We continue to learn and grow and evolve. That being said, as a demonstration of our commitment to this, we actually have one of our members here tonight who is here on their birthday. So that's pretty committed. And he's back at the camera. So happy birthday to Stanley.
Thank you, after.
That's right. We'll just form up right
down the line. Huh?
So you might remember back on the first one we had, 4 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, Brent presented, and the first half of his presentation had to do with attitude. And as I continue to get more and more tuned into this, I realized more and more how important attitude is. And it's a big deal for us to get through any given day in life. Attitude is really important. To get through any kind of an emergency or a disaster or something, it's absolutely can be crucial for our survival. So anyway, I just found a quick little thing I'm going to share with you this evening. And this is a nifty book that I have called The Power of Attitude, and it's by Mac Anderson. And he says, understand this life-changing law. A Native American boy was talking with his grandfather. What do you think about the world situation, he asked. The grandfather replied, I feel like wolves are fighting in my heart. One is full of anger and hatred. The other is full of love, forgiveness, and peace. Which one will win, asked the boy. To which the grandfather replied, the one I feed. This author goes on to say, this simple story provides the essence of a life-changing law of the universe. You become what you think about. The words are almost too simple to feel important. However, if you get it, if you truly understand their meaning, you can forever harness the power of a positive attitude. Simply stated, if we choose to think positive thoughts, we'll get positive results. If we think negative thoughts, we'll get negative results. Pretend for a moment that every thought is the seed you sow in your fertile mind. Therefore, as I once heard someone say, if you plant crab apples, don't expect to harvest golden delicious. You will reap the fruit of the thoughts you sow. Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, in The Power of Positive Thinking, stated, learn to expect, not to doubt. In doing so, you bring everything into the realm of possibility. And the author commented, "It is amazing how a sustained expectation of the best sets the forces in motion which will cause the best to materialize." And then Henry Ford said, and you've heard this, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." So I think that's an important part of being prepared for whatever may come, and as each one of us go about our own personal and family preparation, that we look at it in a positive manner. One thing that I personally don't want to see any of us doing is looking at this as a doomsday kind of thing. I think that every day that we get is a gift, and we ought to treat it as such, and we ought to go about it making the most of it. And as part of doing that, continue to work on getting ourselves prepared in the event that we need to work outside of the realm of normalcy that we normally exist in. So we will just continue to present a variety of these things. I've mentioned before, but we have the first 8 courses that we've gone through 4 of them. Tonight will be number 5, and then we'll have 3 more. Communication and monitoring next week. The following week, medical emergency, which will include dental, first aid, and minor surgery. And then the final week, phase 2 medical emergency, which will also include dental, first aid, and minor surgery. So Dr. Todd Butler will, and Dr. Tom Fulmer, dentist and a chiropractor, will teach those last 2. Next week will be Todd Butler and Phil Nethercott. So we're looking forward to that. Communications and monitoring next week. Now, that being said, we have a fairly long list. We've identified 27 topics that we really feel like would be appropriate over time to have these kind of workshops for. We have a list here of them. If anybody's interested, one of the things that we've mentioned before, but we'll continue to ask, is that if anybody would like to be presenters, here's the list. We haven't scheduled phase 2, but we'll be talking about that and be doing that later in the year. If anybody's interested in being a presenter, if you have some understanding, knowledge, expertise in any given area or resources, we would really appreciate it. We love to have more individuals get involved and get more community resources help, involved in this also. So these are up here and available if anybody wants to pick them up. And remember, we have our website, communitypg.us. We encourage you to check that out. And with that being said, I'm going to go into this now. Any comments or questions before we do? All right. Well, let's see if I can figure out how to work this. And this is a big deal, sanitation and hygiene, and we'll kind of talk about it right up front here. And most of it I'm just going to read through with you, and I apologize for that, but I'm not going to try to fix something that's not broken. This guy does an extremely good job. But sanitation is one of the most important and most overlooked aspects of emergency preparedness. We think about a lot of things as far as stocking up on things or how to do this or how to do that, but a lot of times we don't think about what may come if if we have to actually leave our home, or if the power goes out, or our water supply is disrupted, and really, ultimately, how much that can affect. People affected by disasters are more likely to become ill and to die from diseases related to inadequate sanitation and water supplies than from any other single cause. That's pretty intense statement there, because you think about all of the disasters that's happened around the world in these just recent years, and people that have died from things like the tsunamis and that kind of thing over in Asia and that. There's been a lot that's been died from the initial impact, but ultimately disease ends up killing a lot more. So that's important. When cleanliness stops, disease begins. So personal hygiene is essential for our protection. Keeping clean and healthy helps to ensure that our bodies are in the best working condition and free from illness, and our physical health directly impacts our psychological health. So then, of course, just in contrast to that, not maintaining our personal hygiene can lead to decrease in morale and an increase in stress and illness or death. So when we get when things affect us negatively psychologically, and or we get we allow ourselves to become totally stressed, which will be much more apt to happen if we're unprepared, then the odds of us becoming ill increase dramatically. All right, so it's kind of some gross pictures, but I guess they're real. So overview of sanitation. Obviously not a glamorous topic, but it's probably the most overlooked. And it talks about that we, as a people, typically take for granted our excellent water, sewage, waste disposal services that we have available to us. And we also take for granted that they've done more to increase lifespans and prevent disease than all medical advances combined that ever could. So that's kind of brings a lot of perspective to it. Throughout history, millions have died from diseases such as cholera and dysentery, and which come from contaminated water from human waste. And this is pretty staggering. According to the World Health Organization, waterborne diseases are responsible for the death of 4,000 children every day. That's kind of hard to comprehend, and the world over kills over 4 million people a year just with diarrhea and intestinal. So we're bringing a little perspective to it here. And then there's things that we also take for granted: garbage collection, and if we take it for granted until we don't get it, and all we need is at our home, all we need is a holiday to fall on garbage collection day and have to put it off a day, and it's like, oh no, things are stacking up. So you can imagine in a matter of days. Now, obviously, this is put together with the mind of different cultural settings, and it includes big, very populated, condensed, cities and that kind of thing. In my mind, we're very blessed to live in an area where we kind of got wide open spaces in a sense, and some of this stuff is not going to affect us as quickly as it might in a more populated area. I think that's safe to say. But nevertheless, we need to be prepared. Talks about how the bubonic plague spread from China through Europe during the Middle Ages, and interestingly that the Black Death wiped out a third of the population of Europe. And I kind of thought about that for a minute, and I thought, wow, we've heard those stories in history in high school and all that kind of stuff, but kind of try to bring that home. You think about Millville, okay, what have we got? 1,500 to 1,700 people, something like that. I don't remember the population, but 1850. Okay, so I mean, we're a small enough community. If there's one person in our community of 1,850 people that suffered an untimely death, accident, or just all of a sudden onset of illness or something like that, that really kind of devastates the community. A large portion of it can be devastated. If you bring that perspective into it, with that perspective, 600 people at Millville would die from that kind of a thing. Now that's probably not going to happen, okay? But it really brings some, I mean, in Cache Valley, what have we got, 120-some thousand, 40,000 people with that perspective would die in Cache Valley, Brent?
In that disaster preparedness expo last weekend, there was a couple different classes. One of them talked about how to kill the plague virus with an herbs mixture, and some others that had some liquid that would kill the plague virus. So that was very interesting, and they were talking about that.
And yeah, that's great. And we know that there's been dramatic advances in things, including that kind of information since, you know, the 1300s. So anyway, but that's interesting. So the sanitation and hygiene at a municipal level are critical in keeping us safe and healthy. We need to take it seriously and be ready for emergencies that would disrupt them. Failure to properly dispose of human waste and garbage can lead to epidemics of such diseases as typhoid, dysentery, and diarrhea. And we need to have a plan in place to be able to dispose of sewage and things that could otherwise lead to those kind of things in a hurry if our system was down. We'll talk about this some more, but I grabbed Kyle Hansey at church on Sunday to ask him a little bit about septic tanks, since he built us all on the septic system. And I just said, so what's the potential for our septic tanks to become non-functional? And one of the things that brings out here is if our ground gets totally saturated, it can cause a problem with there. And then if when we have our major earthquake, you know, the lines between the septic tank and our home could get broken. The septic tank themselves can collapse, and so they would become non-functional. And in a hurry, our septic system is no longer functional. So, not on a municipal sewer system, which you even have a few more concerns about, but we still have them, and we need to have a plan in place to address them. All right, so at the same time, we need to be able to prevent contamination of water supplies used for drinking, cooking, bathing, laundering, and other domestic purposes. And so there are 6 major priorities when preparing to maintain proper hygiene and sanitation following an emergency. And so we must prepare in the following way. And of course, the primary goal that we're really talking about is the prevention of or spread of communicable diseases. And so these 6 major things is there needs to be plenty of clean water for both drinking and washing, a means of human waste disposal, a way to dispose of trash and garbage. We need to be able to ensure proper food handling and know what to do and how to handle pest, insect, rodent control, and a means of maintaining regular hygiene habits. All right, so we're going to talk about water here, and we're going to go through this fairly quick. 3 weeks ago, I think it was, Stan did a water presentation, and so we've got that. It was videoed, it's on our website, and it will be set up so that it can be watched on YouTube. So we'll kind of I'm going to still go through it, but we'll just kind of skip through it. I mean, don't hesitate to speak up. But, so obviously, I mean, this is very true. We are fortunate to have clean water piped directly to our homes, but situations can arise, and probably in our area, the most readily one you'd consider would be an earthquake that could disrupt and contaminate our drinking water. So earthquakes, we don't worry about hurricanes. Flooding's a possibility. We've seen in our lifetime major water come down off of that mountain through those gullies and wash right down through that field and bring big boulders and wreak havoc along the way. So it can happen. That was back in the 50s, but...
And we also just heard of West Virginia. Several communities lost their water supply because of contamination.
Yeah.
Some spills of chemicals. And, you know, fortunately, most of our aquifer is not in places where those are at, but it doesn't mean it can't happen.
Absolutely. Thank you. Terrorist attacks on that, and that's a huge one that terrorists can do in a hurry and really disable and mess up our way of life. So besides, anyway, so we need to be prepared for a water shortage for days or even weeks. So with the loss of water, we lose drinking water, and our means of keeping clean and disposing of human waste. So it can be a disaster. I mean, it can be very challenging to find clean water in the event of that. So, I mean, lakes, streams, rivers, and groundwater are often can be polluted if septic systems up on the bench got messed up. It possibly could do that into the water coming down here. And then one of the things that points out that where water systems, if somebody's going to the head of the water source to try and get it, enough people going to do that can contaminate the water, the people themselves looking for it. So the best way to make sure you have enough water for drinking and bathing and cooking is to store it ahead of time. And Stan talked quite a bit about that a few weeks back. But the rule of thumb it gives here is store 2 gallons per person per day for at least a 2-week supply, and more if possible. And then, but very important, and plan so you can share. And that's what we want to do in our mill. So what kind of water should I use? Use tap water. It's clean, it's inexpensive, and it's easy to rotate frequently. You want to store in a clean, opaque container and keep it in a cool, dark location. And you probably don't need to treat it, but treating it's not a bad idea. It says that under these conditions, if you do that, that water can actually get more pure with time. And but since no guarantee that any container is absolutely bacteria-free, he recommends treating it. And what was the solution? What we talked about treating that with chlorine, didn't we? And what was the solution we recommended on that? He doesn't have that in this one, but I don't think he might.
We've got it up on the website.
Okay, I can't remember what it is, but it's, I mean, it's very minute amount. But
I found a website this week, I think it's called the Tank Farm, or Tank something. Anyway, you can go on and look for water tanks. And they're blue barrels, like the ones they sell at like those. You know, yeah, they were going for $45. Some places had them on sale. If you bought 2, you could get them for $38 a piece for the 55-gallon drum. And then the really nice stackable type were a little bit more, but they were cheaper than what I saw at other expos. Not the one we had here, but others. So.
If you go online and price those out and get your online pricing, then call Steve Regan. It's kind of the hardware store over there. They get direct. They're a dealer for all those, for a lot of those plastic container manufacturers. Instead of paying $100 in shipping or $300 in shipping, they'll match the internet price with no shipping.
Wow.
is that the South Fork hardware, or is that?
No, it's Steve Regan, and it's like a Cal Ranch type, IFA type.
Second North, across from the radio station.
Second
Oh,
North.
okay.
So call them. They've got dealerships with the plastic plant in Tooele that makes almost all of them. There's a couple plants around the country. You either can pay the shipping or find it. I did that with them, and they've got all these containers, and they'll match internet prices.
Wow.
Perfect.
Great deal.
Very good. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. All right, so yeah, make sure the containers are food grade quality. That one that you saw there, and that was a 55-gallon, and they're good as long as you can stay home. But then it raises the question, what if you can't stay at home? We have to leave our homes for whatever reason. Then those are too large, too heavy, too awkward to transport. One of those with water in it's going to weigh about 460 pounds. If you have a gallon container, you're talking 8 1/3 pounds. So, smaller containers, the 2-liter pop bottles, gallon apple juice bottles, 5-gallon water jugs. As far as this website goes, or this program, they're all appropriate. You kind of take what you got. One of the really things that I think is a great plan. I mean, we go out and we need to be buying stuff and putting things together, but we need to use what we can that we already have. Go economical. And don't spend a fortune on all this stuff if you don't have to. We have stuff in our cabinets and closets and garages that could be used in a lot of things that they sit there. So use the resources you have.
Right.
The best probably thing to have is get one of those filters that you can, so you can drink out of
Yeah,
streams or something like that. You don't have to carry all that weighted water.
absolutely. And well, I think that'll be up there a little bit, but yeah.
Didn't it say when we were in that class that you shouldn't store it in juice bottles or something? Did they
Well,
tell you that, Stan?
We had a when we were going through the cert, we had a presenter come in, that's a local guy that's an expert on water. His personal opinion was not to store it in juice containers. That was his opinion, and so this is somebody
Juice
else's
has so
opinion.
much sugar that you
Right.
can't clean out,
Get that.
Yeah,
and it's easy to get contaminated.
it is. So you want, I mean, realistically, if you use a 2-liter pop bottle, and it's not diet, that's full of sugar also, really. You gotta clean them out good, Stan.
Well, and he that was the conundrum there that I talked to him afterwards, you know, was, well, you know, you're recommending pop bottles, 2-liter pop bottles, they have sugar in them too. And he basically had no response to that, so
But, I mean, it's a good point.
if you wash them out good,
When you empty them, that they really are rinsed out good.
Yeah.
So. And that probably would go right along with, it's not a bad idea to do a little bit of treating there.
and filtering if you need to.
Yeah, and filtering, absolutely. All right, so again, it talks about the 2 gallons per day. That just says for at least 3 days, but 2 weeks. And so the smaller ones, and it makes a point there that if you do have, you know, if somebody pulled in a portable water mule or whatever, and to go refill, a smaller 5-gallon one or whatever is going to be a lot easier to deal with, refilling and taking back to wherever you're at. Lynette?
I actually have some empty containers, gallon that were juice containers, that I leave empty and clean so that I can fill them up if I have time or if the water guy comes around. And they're ready to roll right now.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah, because at 8 pounds per gallon, you got 50-gallon barrel, you got some serious weight
Yeah,
there.
it's 460 pounds, so, yeah, we're not gonna be hefting those anywhere. All right, so there's just some of the 5-gallon containers. I think that's an interesting one there, because I think that's a gasoline one. So, but I guess if you buy it brand new and don't put gas in it, push comes to shove.
And then you're gonna dump it in your car, though. So.
Yeah, I don't recommend that one.
Not a deal.
They generally have green ones for that. That's
Yeah.
what the military uses.
At that emergency preparedness show last weekend, they had a company that had those square things, did you see that? And each of them had a color for whether you're storing kerosene, or gasoline, or water, or other chemicals that you could have.
So
in
they had a
fuel.
designated
They had
color.
a designated color for each one.
There, yeah.
Plus they were stackable and they were.
Interlocking, they were pretty neat.
Yeah.
And if you have a felt tip marker, you might even mark on it.
There you go.
Novel.
Yeah, I know.
There you go, using what you've already got, right? But yeah, anyway, I mean, you gotta take an approach to this as what's gonna work and some good common sense along the way. All right, so there's just some different looks at it right there. I mean, even if you store up on a lot of cases of those over time. I mean, okay. So, moving along.
Glade,
Yes.
I was gonna ask about those water bottles. Do we know how long they will last?
Like those little ones that I was just pointing out, I don't know.
They do have expiration dates.
Yeah, they
on
do.
them.
Okay.
Do they have some-
So if you do that, you wanna rotate.
Yeah, because that's what they make us do at school, is rotate things.
So, all right, thanks for pointing that out. I don't have a clue what this is. Does anybody know what that is?
They're for distilling water.
For distilling? Okay. So, but shows the different Clorox the treatment, boiling's the treatment, filtering, a couple of different filters, distilling, and then just chemical treatment.
And it should be pointed out that with distilled water, yeah, I mean you can survive on it, but it does not not contain the minerals that your body really needs.
So, all right. So here we're getting into the fun stuff now.
fact, distilled water long-term will leach it, leach the minerals out of your body, and your joints will start hurting.
Okay. So there's 4 factors here that it points out that are crucial. If you're able to stay at home, if water's available, if all sewer lines are intact and the power grid is up, follow an emergency, then sanitation can usually continue as normal. If any of those factors change, then you have a serious problem. A sustained power outage can cause areas that rely on pumps to be without water. And I don't know if ours requires that or not. We've got the reservoir up there, and it probably requires the pump to keep it full. Is that right?
Yeah, pump is down over on 550.
Okay, so we'd be affected then. Okay.
And once, because we had a time last summer when the power went out and we didn't know about it, and that thing will drain in 3 days.
So there you go.
It was right at the point of draining.
And if people panic and start filling barrels, it'll go down faster.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so this is an interesting 1998 in Auckland, New Zealand, lengthy power failure that led to several days without water. It says people in general are not smart. Rather than try and conserve or make a plan once the water stopped flowing, they would flush their toilets, and without power from the force of water, the tank doesn't refill. The domino effect is not only gross but staggering. What human beings that have never lived beyond modern conveniences will do is unimaginable. Said, what I researched and wrote about blew my own mind. When people were actually confronted with such a situation, they went wherever they could. They filled the toilet tank, the tub, the shower, the sink. When the bathrooms became uninhabitable, they went in corners, boxes, bags, closets. Most, however, left by the time they were using the tub. Guess how long that took? Just 3 days. So that's an actual recorded event in 1998. Harry?
In our situation, with having the septic tanks, if we can stay at home, it'd be a good idea to have water that was not potable, just to flush your toilet, because all you gotta do is take a bucket, pour it in the toilet, and it'll flush into your septic.
Exactly.
Well, you can shower in it first.
Yep.
Yeah,
You can do all sorts of.
yeah, the gray water.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's what this next one's talking about. If you're at home and they're not, and they are intact, the sewer lines,
I like her face.
except during flooding, then
It's really enjoyable.
you can use the toilet as normal, but then you use what Harry's talking about as the gray water, which can come from after baths, after whatever, after dishes, pool water, etc. Can be used. You're not going to drink it, but you can use it for those purposes.
I know we had a power outage at work when they were doing 10th West, and I kept a gallon bucket of water by each of the toilets in our business. There were 5 toilets, and there was a bucket of
There
water.
you go.
And it's your responsibility to flush the toilet and then go get the bucket filled up.
You had a plan. There you go. All
Because you
right.
can get, we do a lot of spraying, and you can get those big plastic things that you put water and defoliant and stuff in there for spraying that are 300 and 400 gallons.
Like a bladder.
They have a truck. It's a hard plastic.
Yeah, oh, okay.
And it has at the very bottom has a outlet that you can hook a hose to and keep it outside and run it into the house or whatever.
Okay.
They sell those a lot of places around town.
All right, so if we don't have water available and let's say our septic system isn't working, we can do something like this, which it shows putting a garbage bag in the toilet and going that way. At least you can remove it, and then you have to have a plan for getting rid of it. So there is that.
It's like a lot harder.
Anyway, whatever you use that way, it does recommend that if you need to do this kind of thing, to put shredded bits of paper or sawdust or cornstarch or kitty litter in the bag to absorb the urine, and then make sure you keep it as covered as you can to help prevent flies and reduce odor. Here's a porta potty, but wouldn't that be nice? You know, I've gone up into the Wind Rivers a few times with the Boy Scouts, and you get very isolated and away from everything up there, and there are no facilities at all. And so when you need to go, you walk out away from the camp and you dig a hole and you take care of your business. And it finally dawned on me, you know, if I would just carry just a toilet seat up here, it would make life a whole bunch easier. Yeah, it was crazy. So, just saying.
One other thing that I found was really interesting, they did a study on fecal matter in the air. And in a very, very clean, I mean, they did a test, they did a study on it, a very, very clean restroom that was cleaned daily, and all of this. After a week, everybody's toothbrush, some kept them in little containers, some kept them in the medicine closet, others kept them just hanging in the toothbrush rack. But every single one of them, no matter what condition they put them in, after 2 weeks, tested positive for airborne fecal matter on them. So imagine what it's going to be like if you're not able to keep your restroom clean, or you're having to, you know, use a bucket to wash it down the drain. That increases the health problems. So.
All right, so when you brush your teeth tomorrow morning.
Wash your toothbrush first.
All right, so anyway, there's an idea. We're going to move along here, but it talks about two methods, a wet versus dry toilet. And so the wet method, like you'd find in an RV trailer or whatever, you can add the chemicals and that kind of thing that break it down and make it easy to drain when you haul it to the dump, to the RV dump. And if you add a little bleach to it daily, it'll help to kill germs and stuff. Problem is that in emergency situations, even if you have that available to you, there may not be an RV dump available to you. And so you need to separate those as best as you can. I'm going to kind of move on here because if you separate them, you can get rid of the wet part of it. And it recommends, Brent?
Go ahead.
It recommends that you can do things with the urine and that, like pour it out in your yard in a garden or whatever, and that kind of thing. And then you can bury the solid.
Yeah, if you got a trailer, you want to get one of those little flat plastic container that you can hook underneath the sewer, and they fill that up. Then you can just roll that, it's on wheels and you can roll it anywhere. Dig a hole, dump it in there, throw some lime in it. And take care of it.
Very good. Yep. So there you go.
So that's, so you bury the plastic bag, obviously. I mean, I guess that's gonna be okay, huh?
Yeah, I think that.
I'll dump a bunch of lime in it, everybody should have a big stack of lime.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to do, but one of the things that does, as far as burying goes, is make it deep enough, and 18 inches deep and at least 100 feet away from any open water or wells. And deep enough so that animals won't dig down to it.
So here in Millville, we're talking about our own yards?
Yeah.
I don't think you can bury plastic,
Well, you could
unless you do when
temporarily.
nobody's looking or something, I don't know, I don't think.
So you're thinking dump the solid material out of the back? No, this is kind of a gross. It doesn't really specify that, and I really haven't researched it in any other way. But well, it does say 18 inches deep for the plastic bag, so that's what it's saying. But
Better than having it close.
Yeah.
Where do you get lime, Brent?
That's what I need to look into.
You can get it at any place where they sell cement. You can get it at Home Depot, you can get it at Lowe's, you can get it at IFA. So there's quite a few places you can get lime.
So as far as burying it goes, it's probably not realistic. We got 20 minutes. We're good. It's probably not realistic to think you're just going to go out and dig a hole 18 inches deep this time of year. And so it talks about that. Otherwise, you can store it in a lined garbage can with a tight fitting lid for collection later.
Well,
You
that's
wanna
good.
teach everybody else how to do this right, because you might do it right, but your neighbor or neighbor 5 houses down does it, and the flies go from there to your kitchen.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know if, and that's a good point, I was gonna talk about this anyway, I don't know how many of you know how flies really do this thing. I found out in a kind of an interesting way about 43 years ago. I was was going through some military training and getting ready to go overseas and to a very primitive area. And so they was having a class on hygiene and sanitation, and they, from the underside of a piece of glass, a fly landed on it, so they videoed this and had it blown up. But the fly landed on it, it vomited, let its vomit do the digestive thing, and then when it was digested, then it took it back in. And so that's how flies work. That's how they share germs, and they vomit on things. So that, and one of the things that they vomit on is excrement, feces. And so, yuck.
And then they eat it again.
Yep. And so, yeah. So here's some ideas for portable things and ways to separate wet and dry and that kind of stuff. And you have to deal with that on a personal basis. But all right, here's just, I'm not going to spend time on this, but it will be available if you want to go dig in. If you want to put one of these together, I recommend it. It's good to have as a backup and the things that go along with it. It mentions things on there like a rope and tarp and that kind of thing, because you might have to go out, and it's nice to have a little privacy. So there's some ideas on privacy. So you can spend money on them.
Those pop-ups will twist right down into nothing.
So there you go. So you can spend money, or if that's a problem, you can usually come up with something. I mean, even if it came to just having a sheet, at least, you know, take what you got and make the most of it. All right, so talks about the difference between garbage and trash. And garbage is basically anything that would come out of a bathroom or a kitchen. Trash is anything that wouldn't. So this kind of stuff will typically decompose more rapid. This kind of stuff takes more time. The trash takes more time to decompose. So anyway, nevertheless, you don't want to let them accumulate. You don't want something hanging around your environment that's going to attract those flies and then many, many other kinds of insects and vermin and stuff that will bring disease to you. So a lot of the garbage that could be composted can be fed to chickens, and we got a lot of those in Millville. You know, I don't know if we got a lot of pigs, but we got other animals that would eat it too. But anyway, so it's not a great big concern, but it is a concern if it's interrupted, and if it was allowed to accumulate, it can become a serious health hazard. And then it talks about dry versus wet garbage. You can get rid of wet garbage by pouring it out again, but unless it's fats or oils, and if you want to get rid of those, you can pour them again in a pit that you dig, and just deep enough that you can then cover it with dirt and keep stuff away from it. Okay, and so, but that again, same rule of thumb, at least 100 feet from open water or any kind of water source. And then there's burning. Trash can be burned, and you know, if it's stuff that you would normally recycle, it talks about even if you got a food can and you don't want to waste the water washing it out, you can put it on a fire and burn it out, and then pull the can out later and smash them up and save them for recyclable. But don't mash them up with the food still in them. Once again, you're setting up a draw for things that will cause you problems. So then it brings up the politics of burning garbage that has lost social acceptance. In an emergency, let's burn our garbage. And we'll worry about the sociality down the road. All right, food handling. It's very important that cleanliness is maintained with handling food, and it's treated right. If refrigeration is unavailable, food will spoil rapidly. In preparing food, It points out no leftovers, no throwing away uneaten food. That's really important for a variety of reasons. A, you want to conserve the food you got, so don't make more than you absolutely are going to consume, or don't prepare any more than that. And then if you're going back to those same old dishes if you're having to throw some away, or disposing of it properly. You don't need to be bothered with that kind of stuff if you just have a plan in place and follow it. Keep it covered. Kind of think of what you do if you go camping. How do you treat your campsite when you call it a day and go to bed at night? You make sure, if it's a garbage bag, we hang it up in a tree so that the bears or whatever can't get to it, or the skunks are not going to be in there after it. And just kind of think about that. And no trace left behind kind of camping comes into play in this a lot. Talks about things like you can wash fruits and vegetables with the 1 to 10 bleach water solution, and that will help to make them more sanitary and better to eat without causing.
You should be doing that now.
Should be.
You don't know who's handled that stuff out in the field.
Well, we do on most things prepare them appropriately, but I mean, I'll pick up an apple that's been who knows where and start chomping into it, so I agree. Really a good idea is part of your supply stock up is to have paper plates and cups and stuff, that disposable kind of stuff. Brent?
I learned something recently about fruits and vegetables that one reason to wash them real good is because you get little worms on them, little bitty ones and stuff. In fact, from a colon therapist, because the two that I've worked with and trained in the past, for 20 years, they say 90% of all the people they do colonics on have worms come out of them. 90.
That's a large percentage. Yeah. So anyway, cleanliness maintained absolutely in food prep, and proper cooking.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Nobody said I was sleeping, tonight.
Too much detail.
I'm sorry.
You like that clown?
Like it said in the beginning, it's not a real popular thing to present, but here we are. It's very, very important. So, just some good guidelines to follow. If food is steaming hot, it should be steaming hot throughout. There's ways to save food that would otherwise need to be refrigerated by smoking meat and stuff like that.
One other thing, if you do get worms, parasites, they hate fennel seeds and pumpkin seeds. So you can take that. They also hate oregano. They hate that stuff. Okay.
All right, so just kind of follow these and refer back to that. Kind of moving along here. This is the kind of stuff we're talking about already. Dehydration, smoking, stuff like that. Should be consumed within 2 hours after it's prepared, and make sure the food handlers are free of disease and not having those kind of symptoms, vomiting. They don't have skin lesions, cold, flu, diarrhea, uncovered wounds. Hand washing is absolutely crucial. I've been in healthcare now for 30-some years, and probably the most consistent thing that has been reinforced every day, time and again, is proper hand washing throughout the years. That's never changed, and it is extremely important. Probably the #1 cause for sharing of diseases is hand to mouth, and proper hand washing, absolutely correct.
There was a hospital, I think it was back in St. Louis, decided they was going to, because one in every 14 surgeries in America gets a secondary infection with the surgeries. 2 million people a year die from those, 1 every 6 minutes. Well, this hospital decided they was really going to focus on cleanliness and everybody washing their hands and doing everything right. And they cut their reinfection rate by half by doing that.
Yeah. So, and in this day and time, one of the things that has evolved over the years that I've seen is that it used to be strictly hand washing. Now what is acceptable there is you have to keep your hands clean and wash them routinely, but between patients, before and after, you can also use the hand sanitizer, the alcohol-based hand sanitizer, which is effective. You just need to wash regularly so as to not let glycerin build up and get on it and that kind of thing. But We do. I recommend as part of your storage and preparedness is to have some good jugs of that hand sanitizer, and I don't know if it has an expiration date or not. Pay attention to that. If it does, rotate it accordingly.
And a box of them surgical gloves, everybody ought to have.
Yeah, final. Yep, absolutely. Very good. All right, good idea here.
Sure.
Pardon?
My grocery list.
Okay, sorry rushing, we're running down. But yeah, back to if you have paper plates and that, here's a nice type of container to just have for that, and have a nice stock of them. It can make a lot of difference in an emergency. And then we're back, of course, down to hand washing. And then besides the hand washing, which we talked about, is controlling discharges associated with coughing and sneezing. So, and of course, you want to sneeze or cough into something and then get rid of it. If you don't have that, the thing is to do it into the elbow kind of thing, and away from people, not on your hands, where again you're sharing that right away. So there's guidelines there on washing hands, and talks a lot about doing it when you're, of course, preparing food. Very important. I'm not gonna. All right, and continue to go through that. I recommend that you go into this and make sure you have a good plan in place. So, should be washed for at least 20 seconds. Recommends using a memory aid such as singing a song or reciting a poem.
Sing the alphabet twice.
The alphabet
That's what
twice.
we tell the kids.
There you go.
They
Okay.
don't know it.
So,
We had our work is really into that. They had me install on all the faucets an automatic faucet. You don't have to touch handles. You just, from underneath, you set what temperature mixture you want. And then there's a sensor above, and as you move your hand under the faucet, the water comes on.
yeah, good stuff. And then paper towels are nice, especially, and it points that out there. Use a paper towel, and of course these days a lot of the automatic dispersing units again, so you're just grabbing the paper towel, doing it, and then if you have to grab a handle or turn a doorknob or still turn off a water faucet, use that paper towel to do that, and then you're not cleaning your hand and then re-contaminated it immediately by doing that. So that's good. And that talks about the alcohol-based, and it needs to be at least a 60% alcohol-based sanitizer to be considered effective. All right, talks about brushing teeth, and one of the good things, and at the end of this, and we're not going to have time really to get to it, but I went through and found a long list of uses for baking soda, and of course it can be a toothpaste. There's a long list of those that you ought to have a nice storage of baking soda, you ought to have a nice supply of cornstarch, and you ought to have several gallons of white vinegar. There's amazing things you can do with those three things that takes care of a myriad of issues for you. So,
Entertains kids too.
entertains kids. Okay, well that's very important, especially if I'm around. Somebody needs to be entertaining the kids. Yeah. All right, so keeping your hair clean, and while you're doing it, look for things like ticks or chiggers, because they love to live there. And, yeah. So wear a hat or sunblock to keep from burning your scalp. It's all important stuff. We think how those are good ideas, but when it comes down to survival, they're crucial.
Yeah.
And so again, body hygiene. You let yourself go and don't stay clean. You're setting yourself up as a breeding ground for those kind of bacteria and attraction for flies and for mosquitoes, even much more so than normal. So it's important to take care of yourself. And, so this is kind of interesting. That's one of those sprayers that you put your chemicals in and pump up to spray for grass killers or insects and that. He said he likes to fill those with water and use them as a portable shower. And they'll last a lot longer and do a lot better job than the ones that are designed for it. I think that's a great idea. So I like that. All right, wear sunglasses. Very important. I never thought about this much. I like sunglasses. My eyes are sensitive to bright sun and all that, and so I like to wear them anyway. But a few years ago, I was getting my eyes checked by my ophthalmologist, and I've got I've got a 25-year history of skin cancer, and I've dealt with that over all these years. And I went in a couple of years ago, and they found a lesion right on my eyelid, right at the eyelash. They said, "Oh, we need to get rid of that." I said, "I'm going to go see my dermatologist in a couple of weeks. I'll let him get rid of it. You know, I trusted him a little more." And anyway, he said, "Okay, make sure you wear your sunglasses. That can prevent eye cancer." So it's get home pretty quick. So take care of your eyes, take care of your hair, take care of your cleanliness, ears, nose. Points out the N95 masks. If there's dirty air, that's really important. You know, our bodies have mechanisms built in them to filter the air as we're breathing it in. Our noses are part of that, a huge part of it. But if it's really dirty air, that's going to get down there. And for our lungs to function properly, for the air, for the gas exchange to take place at the level in the lungs where it takes place properly, one of the conditions that has to be met, ideally, is sterile air. It needs to be 100% purified. Our upper airway does that for us. That's one of the main functions.
So does the N95 mask
It filters out big time.
with the bad pollution that we have?
It would help dramatically, yeah. They really started pushing the N95 a few years back with, I think, the H1N1, when that started going around in the hospitals. You can hardly go into a patient's room without wearing one of those.
Do doctors have N95 masks?
You can get these at Walgreens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, do they have something like it, you know,
The
the
yeah,
dentists and the doctors?
yeah, they do. And the hospitals, they have all of the workers that have patient contact have those available to them. Yeah. So, yeah, in fact, I made a note here somewhere. You can get a box of 5 of them at Walgreens for $5.99. So,
Walmart?
at Walgreens.
No.
Walmart, any pharmacy, I think, pretty much probably
How
has.
long do they
it's
last?
very
I mean, do
popular.
you?
They can be used up in a hurry. It depends on the
You've
scenario.
got 3 or 4 people using it.
Yeah, you want to just use
If
your
you
own.
each had one in your 72-hour
It would
pack,
be a good
that's
plan, you
sufficient.
know. You'd be good. I mean, you don't want to reuse it, but it would get you through a crisis.
Can you wash them out?
No,
No.
no. So that's why the box of 5 is a good number per person, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So here's a good idea to have a personal hygiene kit for each person ready to go. And a toothbrush that's not fecally contaminated. So keep your clothing in good order. Talks about how, again, positive attitude, good clothing helps improve your chances for survival and lends to a good positive attitude. It's interesting, but it's true. And so if you don't have electricity, you can't use your washing machine, you can make your own washing machine. So there's a really neat idea right there. And it recommends 2 buckets like that, one for washing and one for rinsing. So toilet plunger, a hole in the lid, and 5-gallon buckets. So pretty neat stuff right there. So that goes on with that. And that talks, and then the pest and rodent control, just encourage you to go in and look at this and get the ideas. The important thing about pest and rodent control is that, for the most part, in a populated area, as long as the other things are in check, dogs and cats will take care of a lot of these guys. Major disaster, a lot of times dogs and cats get killed. You know, all of a sudden they're just not around. These guys can take over in a hurry, especially if we're having to store our garbages and stuff like that.
Cats are really good at controlling spiders too.
Yeah, so...
They can actually hear them moving across carpet.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I can hear them. I'm anyway.
Right.
Here's the thing. We can talk about this right now, but this brings a really good point home right here, right now. If we do whatever we can to control our environment, all we got to do is have a handful of neighbors around us that don't have this understanding, this preparedness level. it's not gonna help that much that we just have it ourselves. We need to be working, encouraging those within our range of influence to get on board with this stuff. It could be a matter, really and truly, not talking doomsday, I'm just talking, this could be a matter of life and death for us and our loved ones. This kind of stuff. So that's very, very important. So anyway, there's a list of some of the typical diseases that these kind of guys carry. And I looked some of them up because I'm really not that familiar with most of them. They're pretty nasty, and a lot of them can lead to death going unchecked. And so there's just some other reminders on stuff you heard. I just research, and then there's a list of uses for cornstarch. There's a list of 23 uses for white vinegar, and continued. And baking soda, 51 uses. So all of that is on our website. It's in there, and it'll be on YouTube eventually as part of this video.
Well, the video will be that. This is on the website.
So anyway, it's amazing the things you can do. So there we go. And I'm 2 minutes over, but we started a minute late, so not bad. We hope to see y'all here next week.
The only problem about these classes is you're not leaving my cost me a fortune to get all this stuff.
You got to dig in those cabinets and stuff better. All right.
You know, Glade and I, last weekend we were headed to Salt Lake to pick someone up at the airport, and ended up that it didn't work, and we had to just keep going straight, and we didn't have anything with. We didn't have deodorant, we didn't have toothbrushes, or anything.
We went to Mesquite with nothing. It was pretty interesting. Pretty interesting.
Little kid in your car.
All right, so if anybody wants to share any of these with neighbors, we've got extras. And then here's the list of topics.
Contact solution, just a little something with it that was around, because that would have been awful. Of course, we could go to the store.